Timeline-wise, I'm not sure. I know that she has been ramping up workouts with the training staff. She's been able to get on the court with Keith, and so I think that's something, after this one, we'll evaluate and see what that timeline looks like going forward.
And then we know Steph's out for personal reasons.
Yep.
Do you guys expect her to be back for the game against Atlanta?
I think that's kind of another situation where we'll see, tonight, after this one's done. We've been in communication, we've kind of, just having her in our thoughts, and letting her know that we have her back. But I think we'll know more, after this one's wrapped up. Yep.
Awesome. Do you have any memories of either like watching the '90s Bulls in this arena or anything like that?
Oh yeah, a lot of memories. I was growing up around that time, and when the Bulls were on their run, that three-peat. I want to say I was born in '89. I'll age myself. And I remember I played AAU basketball. And we were on the roads, and me and my teammates were crammed into hotels. I don't know, days in or whatever it was, watching them in June. And so a lot of memories of watching Jordan, watching the Bulls growing up. They were, obviously. I think everyone's, favorite team, especially the youngsters like us growing up in the '90s. Yep.
When you're preparing to face the Sky, how do you specifically kind of look at Camila Cardoso, the way that she has grown into the team this season? What kind of sticks out to you on film?
Her activity. I think that, she's, since seeing her in college, she's added something to her game, every year. She does a great job in the two-man game of really diving hard and making herself available for those high lows. Her teammates are doing a great job of fighting her. So, that's a point of emphasis for us, is keeping her out of her areas that she loves to operate from, and making it difficult for her and forcing her into twos, the long, tough twos that we want her to shoot outside the paint.
Coach, can you talk about how quickly you guys sort of gelled as a coaching staff, even though, this is your first season all of you together here in Indiana? This isn't an ideal situation, but the fact that you gelled so quickly, how that is sort of helping in terms of you being able to do this?
Yeah, I think it's we all got history. Steph, back in 2012, my wife was on that team when she was an assistant. Breon January was the point guard, and I was coaching high school back during that time, and I had summers off, so I was always in the gym. And so being around Steph, it's been well over 10 years. Seeing how she operates, seeing how she works, getting to pick her brain when I was a young up-and-coming high school coach was huge for me. And I think that you're seeing just our connectivity, over the years. We've made several other stops along the way, but when we come back, we know each other. We have a great feel for each other and, our strengths and weaknesses. And so we kind of balance each other out in areas that we're weak. And it's been a great, first starting the year here with Indiana, and looking forward to more.
Other than doing stuff like this and talking to media, shoot around, is anything different about your day today in terms of routine, preparation, rhythm?
No, I'll be on the court after this, with our players, getting them ready to go. I'll get my shooting times with DB that we've done the last 3 years. And so just making these stops here, talking to you guys is probably just the only different thing in my schedule. So.
Whose job will it be to yell then more at the refs?
Well, I'll pick up some of that for Steph too, for sure. She'll get on me if I don't.
So how does a wide receiver on the Duke football team get involved in women's basketball?
That is an excellent question. I grew up a two-sport athlete. I played basketball my whole life. My dad was a high school coach for 30 years. So basketball has been in my blood. It's in my DNA. When I originally went to Duke, it was to play both, but I had, injuries and some setbacks and ended up, focusing on football. I knew all along I was going to coach. Even playing football at Duke, I knew that I was going to be a basketball coach. It's something that I've, that rubbed off on me from my dad, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. And so, I started at the high school level, after finishing up school at Duke, and that relationship that I built with Steph and Lynn Dunn, and during that 2012 season was huge for where I am today. I think that I've really, taken ownership of really building those relationships and staying in touch over the years. And, you wouldn't see me here if it wasn't for those two. And so, very, very thankful to be in this situation, definitely. But that's how I got here. Basketball's been in my DNA
Just
my
to
whole
follow,
life.
what drew you to the women's game?
I think it was spending time, with my wife in the summers and seeing her play. She was drafted to D.C., bounced around early on, was traded to Tulsa, and was traded to, in that second year, was traded to Indiana, kind of mid-year. And I think spending time around the game there. But also, I have a sister that grew up playing the game, and I've always been around the women's game, the men's game. And so, I think that early on in my wife's career, really, sitting in those practices, sometimes being a part of them and seeing the game and how it's really simple. We make it complex, but seeing how Lynn and Steph really broke it down and made it really simple for their players was, something that really grabbed a hold of me. And, I knew I wanted to be a part of this game.
I'm sure the answer's a lot, but what are some of the biggest things you learned from Lynn and Steph?
Oh, keep it simple, stupid. I think that, Lynn was the engine to that defensive team that in 2012, and Steph was the engine to the offense there. It's keeping it simple so your players are on the same page, and I think it's putting your best players in a position to be successful. And I think that that's something that I've carried. I carried back when I was coaching in high school, and it's something that's really stuck with me. It's just keep it simple. You can't assume your players know everything. And making sure that you relay those messages to them, and that's a couple of things that stuck with me. Perfect.
Thank you.
Have a good one.